Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. Just gonna give just a couple of moments as people trickle in. Hi guys, thanks for joining. Hello, welcome. Um, we have a bit of content to get through today, so while you guys are joining and getting settled, I'm just gonna give us a little bit of an intro into our topic before we hand it over to Alex to present in a couple of minutes here. So what we're going to be talking about today is how to make the most out of your busiest days so that you can really maximize throughput when it matters. So we're well into May as summer is quickly approaching. Many of you are probably entering what is maybe your busiest time or one of your busiest times of the year. So what we're hoping that you leave with today is really a deep understanding of how to analyze your operation and really know how to squeeze as much as possible out of those busy seasons and busy times, so that you're operating, as effectively as you can while having the best customer experience. So what we're going to dive into in a moment here is we'll go through metrics, so how to track your operation and know areas that you could be improving. And then we'll give you action steps. So you should leave with actionable tips that you can implement at your own operation when it comes to what you're analyzing and kind of what to do about it to make your operation just that much more efficient. So again, welcome if you're just joining. I'm just going to walk us through a couple of housekeeping items. So Q&A button at the bottom of your screen is pretty much where you're going to communicate with us for anything that you need during the session. So put questions in there as we go along. We should have a little bit of time at the end for at least a few questions. And if we don't get to all of your questions, we always follow up with an email afterward and we'll answer all of the Q&A. So anything you're wondering about as Alex is talking, go ahead and put that in the Q&A. And then if you happen to have any technical issues, we've got a team monitoring that for any help that you might need as well. And then last thing is if you for some reason can't see that Q&A, try hitting exit full screen, view options, and then exit full screen. It should bring your window a little bit smaller so you can see all of the buttons at the bottom there. All right, so with that, let's do some intros. Real quick, I'm your moderator, Kayla Ivy, Product Marketing Manager at DRB. I'm very excited to introduce your speaker today, Alex Mereness. So he brings a wealth of knowledge when it comes to car wash tunnel operations and really how you can have the best technology to optimize your tunnel, as well as all of the metrics that you should be analyzing and keeping an eye on as an operation. So with that, Alex, let me pass it over to you and you can kick us off.
Awesome. Hey, thank you, Kayla. Appreciate it. Excited to be here and chat with you guys today. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to hop on. I hope that after going through this, each one of you can walk away with something useful here. So, as Kayla mentioned, my name is Alex Mereness. I am Director of Product Management for our Tunnel Solutions here at DRB. I got my start in the industry working on a product called NoPileups, which is a full tunnel optimization solution. I've now been in the car wash industry for about 7 years, I think actually going on 8 years, and I've loved every moment of it. I'm passionate about technology, people, processes, and data. So let's go ahead and get started and jump in. I think we've got a lot of content to cover, so want to make sure we're able to get to your questions at the end. So when we think about growing a car wash business, the conversation often centers around revenue operations, right? Things like growing memberships, increasing retail traffic, and building customer loyalty. And make no mistake, those are absolutely critical to your success. But there is another side of the coin that doesn't always get the same spotlight, and that's tunnel operations. Because here's the thing, customer loyalty isn't just built on great marketing or slick offers, it's built on consistency. The consistent, smooth, and fast customer experience is what keeps people coming back. So today we're going to zoom in on that second side of the coin. We'll talk about how focusing on your tunnel operations, specifically during your busiest times, drives greater efficiency, improves the customer experience, and ultimately makes your business more scalable and more profitable. If you want to optimize your wash operations, you've got to measure performance. It's just that simple. Key metrics like throughput, conveyor utilization, and downtime, they're not just numbers. They're directly tied to your efficiency and your profitability. You've probably heard it or even have said it yourself. I feel like we're efficient. I feel like we're busy. I feel like our processes are consistent. But here's the reality. Gut feels don't cut it anymore. And more to the point, your competitor down the road is not relying on their gut. Let me give you a real life example of where those feels can start to lead you astray. My wife orders some piece of furniture off of Amazon. You know, the really premium stuff, the kind that arrives in a flat box with that one little bag of hardware and that instruction manual that is way thicker than it should be. I take one look at it and I think, I've got this. I feel like I can figure it out. I feel like I don't need the instructions. Fast forward 3 hours in, and the data, in this case, the clock on the wall and the long number, the big number of bad words that I've muttered, suggest maybe my gut was a little off. Finally, I'm forced to admit defeat. I bow my head in shame and open the instruction manual. Now, sometimes I will power through and I'll finish the job. But then I've got the three mystery screws left over. You know the ones. Everything looks okay, but now you're sitting there wondering, what did I miss? The structure seems solid, but the integrity is questionable. And that's exactly what can happen when we try to make operational decisions without the data. Without tracking baselines and measuring outcomes, we're essentially building blind and hoping for the best. But hoping, as we all know, is just not a strategy. Everyone here probably tracks a dozen, maybe even 2 dozen metrics around revenue operations. And that makes complete sense. Revenue is visible, it's top line, and we've all been trained to chase those numbers. But when it comes to tunnel operations, those metrics often take a back seat. And I firmly believe that's a missed opportunity. I like to think of a car wash tunnel as a mini assembly line. If you've ever looked at a manufacturing plant, you know the focus is relentless. Peak efficiency, maximum output, and consistent quality every single time. Why should it be any different in a car wash? When we apply that same manufacturing mindset, tracking baselines, establishing KPIs, and making data-driven decisions, we start to unlock the real performance of our operation. So what do we get when we focus on tunnel KPIs? 4 big outcomes. Let's start with consistency. I think that there are both internal and external impacts. Consider the external impact. Every car that goes through your tunnel is a moment of truth. It might be a customer's first visit or their 100th, but they'll remember if it's inconsistent, and inconsistency begins to erode trust. On the internal impact, if your tunnel process isn't consistent, then your policies and procedures all of a sudden become optional. That leads to shortcuts, variation, friction for your customers and your team. On quality, your brand stands for something. If that something is quality, then it needs to show up in every single wash, every single time. This is your last line of defense to protect that standard. Scalability. Scaling a car wash isn't just about opening new sites. It's about replicating what you know is already working. And if you don't know what's working, and if you don't have the data and KPIs, it gets really hard to repeat success. Data gives you the blueprint to scale successfully. Efficiency. Again, here, I believe that there's an external and there's an internal impact. Customers today expect speed, especially your retail customers who may be trying your wash for the first time. The word express has to mean something. If you're slow or inconsistent, they will notice and they might not come back. The internal impact, if you're not tracking efficiency, your team will assume that it's not a priority for you. And that's not just a missed opportunity for performance, it's potentially leaving revenue on the table. The bottom line here is when you start treating your tunnel like the heart of your operations and tracking it accordingly, everything improves. The customer experience, the employee experience, and yes, the bottom line. The chart on the screen shows a 2-week reporting period. It overlays your org average as well as the industry average for the day. This allows a site to org to industry comparison. Now, this is probably one of the most familiar metrics to everybody on the call: vehicles washed per day. It's one of the first numbers that people track when they get into the business, and most of you already have systems that you can get that data at from a site level. But this is where it gets really valuable when you start layering in additional context. With this view, you're not just seeing what's happening at your site, you're also seeing how your performance compares across your organization, and more importantly, across the industry average. So if Monday looked a little slow, you can start to ask a better question. Was Monday slow for everyone or just us? This context is powerful because if you're seeing a dip and the rest of the industry is flat or it's climbing, that's a signal to dig in. But if it looks like the whole industry took a hit, maybe it rained regionally, maybe there's a holiday. Either way, this ensures that you are not overreacting to the noise. It's the same story for hourly breakdowns too. Once you can pinpoint your busy hours or lulls, you can start optimizing staffing, maintenance schedules, and even marketing campaigns to push volume into the slower times. So let's say you've started tracking your wash volume data and comparing it to industry averages. Great, you've got some insight. Now what do you do? In my opinion, this is where things get fun because once you identify whether you're above or below average, you can start making smarter decisions. For example, if you're below average, that's a signal. It's an opportunity. Start by asking, can I drive more traffic through marketing or customer experience improvements? Is my brand delivering a consistent enough experience that keeps people coming back? Here's an analogy I like to use. Think about restaurants. They don't run happy hours because they're dying to sell wings and drinks at a discount. They do it to drive traffic during their slowest times. The same concept applies here. What promotions or incentives could you run to bring in more traffic on your slow days? Also, take a look at staffing. Are your labor levels aligned with your volume? Sometimes it's not just about increasing traffic, it's about being smarter with the team that you've already got. Now, if you're above average, first off, awesome job. You're doing something right. But now it's about squeezing more juice out of that lemon. When you're already busy, the next challenge becomes, how do I move more cars through without compromising on my quality? That's where diving deeper into your other KPIs like throughput and conveyor utilization or downtime really matters. Every vehicle you move more efficiently is more revenue, lower wait times, and a better customer experience. Here's a quick example. Let's say Mondays are consistently slower. You might choose to scale back staffing slightly in the short term, but you don't stop there. You dig into why. Are we marketing at the right times? Are memberships dropping off on Mondays? Could we run a limited time promo just for that day? The real goal here is to move from this is happening to this is what we're going to be doing about it. And that is how you start to operationalize your data. Let's talk about one of the most eye-opening KPIs, daily conveyor utilization. This metric tells you how effectively you are using your tunnel relative to its peak capacity. In other words, of all the cars your tunnel could wash in a day, how many are you actually getting through? I like to ask high volume operators, where do you think your site lands? It's not uncommon to hear a response of, oh, we're slammed all day, or we're about as maxed out as we can be. Again, that might feel true, but this KPI starts to peel back the onion on that. Because when we look at the actual data, it tells a slightly different story. And let's be clear, no site is going to run at 100% utilization. That's just not realistic. Between shift changes, downtime, weather fluctuations, and human factors, there's always going to be some variability here. But here's the benchmark. Top performing sites are consistently in the 40 to 60% range. And I know some of you are probably thinking, wait, that's the bar, that's the baseline, that's the metric to beat. The answer is yeah. Because the percentage is based on a theoretical max capacity over a 13-hour period, it's tough to push the number higher, especially without fine-tuned operations. So if you're sitting at 10, 15, 20%, that's not something to panic over. It's actually common. But now that you're measuring it, you've got a way to start improving it. Whether it's identifying bottlenecks, reducing gaps, or streamlining load on procedures, this KPI helps you pinpoint where there is room to optimize. So now you're tracking conveyor utilization. Great. What do you do with it? Well, let's break this down into two sides: below average, above average performance, and how to respond in each case. If you're below average, it might mean one of two things. You're simply not seeing enough traffic, or your wash isn't running as effectively or efficiently as it could. Let's say you're not running vehicles bumper to bumper. This might signal inefficient wash times or frequent e-stops that are hurting your flow. This is the time to ask questions like, are our e-stop events happening too often, and why? Are there choke points in our process? Think about your pay stations, consider your load on procedures, or even how quickly your team recovers from an e-stop event. On the flip side, if you're above average, that's a great signal. But that doesn't mean the work is done. Now it's time to double down. Focus on maintaining consistency in how vehicles are being loaded and processed, ensuring that nothing in the tunnel is slowing you down, especially during those peak hours. Here are some other actionable steps. Are your marketing efforts pulling in the right amount of volume? Is your customer experience encouraging repeat visits? Are there inconsistencies in your operations? For example, do some team members leave bigger gaps than others when loading on vehicles? Let me give you a scenario. You've got a solid queue of cars, maybe even out to the street. Good problem to have, right? The perception is we're crushing it. This is great. But utilization data might show otherwise. It might reveal some gaps or delays or loading inconsistencies that could be holding you back from maximizing that throughput. This KPI gives you the signal. It's now your job to investigate and act. And once you do, that's when you start to see the real gains in efficiency and revenue. Let's talk about the average conveyor speed. This is a KPI that gets thrown around a lot, but not always with the attention that it deserves. This metric directly impacts your wash quality, and it's influenced by a variety of different factors. We know chemistry, equipment layout, timing, and of course, wash volume all go into what the average conveyor speed might be for your wash. Here's why it matters. You've already done the work. You've dialed in the recipe. You've built your conveyor speed standard that balances quality with your throughput. And that now becomes your operating template. The real question here is, are your sites following it? Let's say site 8 is running slower than others. Was that decision based on volume, equipment limitations, or is it something slipping through the cracks? This is a perfect example of trust but verify. You want the conveyor speed chart to be boring. No surprises. No sudden dips, no spikes. This is how you know your teams are sticking to the playbook. But if you see variance, that's your signal to investigate. Is this change intentional and documented? Or is it somebody tweaking the process without understanding the full impact? And here's the bigger picture. Consistency across locations is everything when you're building trust with your customers. A car wash should feel the same no matter what location they visit. Average conveyor speed is your way to validate that. It's not just a number, it's a pulse check on your operational discipline. So what do? If you're below average, this is an opportunity to consider increasing your chain speed or your conveyor speed while still maintaining your wash quality. Ask the question, are we being too cautious? Could we push a little harder without sacrificing the customer experience? If you're above average, ensure that the wash quality and customer satisfaction aren't slipping as a result of those increased speeds. Keep an eye out for the signals, things like increased rewash rates, complaints, or even damage claims. Some other actions you can potentially take here are testing out your conveyor speed changes during controlled periods and monitoring that feedback. Again, keeping an eye on the above items that I had mentioned, like your increased rewash rates, your complaints, and damage claims. Train your staff on the new speed expectations and timing changes. Consider implementing tunnel optimization systems like our NoPileups solution to help mitigate risk at your higher conveyor speeds. Use conveyor speed data to drive standardization across all of your locations. Closing the gap. This is one of our really interesting KPIs and one that operators tend to really enjoy analyzing. So again, we go back to the situation we described earlier. You've got the line of cars all the way out to the curb. Good stuff, right? The site is buzzing, the team is moving, but are you truly maximizing throughput? Average gap at peak traffic tells you how efficiently vehicles are being loaded during your busiest hours, the moment that matters the most. Why it matters. A full queue looks great, but what about the customers who saw the line and drove away? When the demand is there, your ability to close the gap between vehicles becomes critical to capitalizing on those opportunities. The seconds do matter. The tighter and safer the vehicle spacing, the more cars you can process and the more revenue you can generate. All load on operators aren't created equal, but they can be trained to be equal. This KPI is more than traffic flow. It's really about capturing every single customer you can, maximizing revenue, and delivering a consistent experience even when the demand is at its highest. Here are some potential actions and considerations for closing the gap. If your average gap is wider than expected during peak traffic, there are a few things that you can look at. It could be a training issue with your load on team. Maybe they're hesitating or they're not confident in loading vehicles as close as they could. It also might pinpoint some inconsistency in your processes. Are all shifts following the same standard? Now, if you're already loading vehicles as close as possible, the next question is, are we doing it safely? Tighter spacing can increase throughput, but it can also increase the potential for damage claims if the process isn't dialed in. Another thing to watch for is variation across shifts or different sites. If you're seeing big differences, that might reveal performance gaps or lack of consistency in how teams are applying your standards. A few more things to consider as you continue to dive into this metric. Reinforce your load on best practices, especially during those peak times. Set clear and measurable benchmarks for the ideal vehicle spacing. Coach your team for confidence and consistency. Again, consider a solution like NoPileups that enables you to load these vehicles closer while also reducing the risk of in-tunnel collisions. Next up is e-stop time. I really enjoy this, and I think it's an underrated metric that folks just miss out on the opportunity to review. Let's look at this through the customer's eyes for a moment. They're in the middle of the tunnel. There's a car in front of them. There's one behind them. Suddenly, everything stops. The conveyor shuts off. The equipment stops running. The windows are covered in soap. They can't see anything, and they're stuck. They have no idea what just happened. No way to ask. 10 seconds quickly starts to feel like 10 minutes to your customer. The customer isn't only wondering what's happened, but they're also starting to feel like their wash quality has been impacted. It's not just a momentary stop for you as an operator. It's a jarring experience for your customer. The e-stop time metric tracks the minutes that the conveyor was stopped while there are vehicles in the tunnel. It's a direct hit to operational efficiency. But more than that, it's a customer experience moment that sticks. There are almost no scenarios where high e-stop time is okay. It's usually a signal that something went wrong. Maybe it's with equipment, maybe it's with customer communication, or maybe it's with training. When this number goes up, you want to jump in immediately, not just to recover throughput, but to understand the impact to your customers and make sure your team understands it too. This KPI isn't just about efficiency, it's about empathy. Even though the ideal number is 0, we all know that some e-stop time is just going to happen. The goal here isn't perfection, it's to minimize it. If you're seeing above average, that's great. You're ahead of the curve. But the next question that you should ask is, should you stop there? Probably not. Because remember, every e-stop is a disruption your customer feels. Now that you have a KPI in place, use it. Challenge your team to keep improving, even from a strong starting point. If your numbers are below average, now that's time to engage. Sit down with your team, start asking questions. What are the most common scenarios where e-stop is being used? Load on issues happens to be one of the most common culprits. Is it customer behavior that's triggering it? And if so, how can we better educate or guide our customers through the experience? Is this a safety or mechanical issue? Are we using e-stop as a catch-all when a more proactive solution could instead help? The takeaway here is now that you have a starting point for your investigation, tag your team in and get to the bottom of what's driving heavy e-stop usage. Your customers and your efficiency will thank you in the long run. At the end of the day, this is what it's all about. Data tells you a story, but you have to be willing to listen to it. Each of the KPIs we talked about is a piece of that story. On their own, they give you helpful snapshots, but together they start to paint a full picture of how your wash is running, and more importantly, where you can improve. Increasing throughput isn't just about running more cars, it's about tightening the gap, loading efficiently, and making sure that your conveyor speed is dialed in. Reducing downtime means tackling things like idle time and e-stop head on. Knowing every minute your conveyor isn't moving, it's a missed opportunity and a potential hit to your customer experience. Improving loader performance. That means building consistency, coaching your team, and reinforcing the operational template you've worked hard to create. So your guest gets the same experience no matter what site they visit or who's working the shift. Enhancing your customer experience, that's the through line of all of this. When your tunnel runs smoother, faster, and more consistently, your customers feel it. Even if they can't quite describe it, it just works. And that's what keeps them coming back. So the takeaway here is this. These metrics aren't just for reporting, they're for revealing. They shine a light on what's working, what's not, and what you can do to move the needle. When you track the right KPIs and use them with intention, you're not just running a car wash, you're leading a high-performing operation. At this point, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, all of these data points are great. How do you actually get them? NoPileups is the answer to that question. With the NoPileups solution, you're able to not only drive consistency, scalability, efficiency, and quality, but you're also able to deliver on those commitments through continuous tracking of those metrics. So next logical question for those of you who may not know, what is NoPileups? NoPileups is our full tunnel optimization solution. It uses computer vision to track every vehicle from the moment it enters the tunnel to the moment it exits. If there's ever risk of collision, the system will automatically trigger an emergency stop and prevent damage. But it's more than just collision prevention. The NoPileups platform also delivers powerful reporting on these operational KPIs, giving your team the insight it needs to optimize performance and really take your wash operations to the next level. With NoPileups, you will see the benefits of increased throughput, reduced downtime, reduction in damage claims, protection of your investments, and improved loading performance. And most importantly, an elevated customer experience. NoPileups isn't just a tool for surfacing these data points. It's a strategic partner that helps you turn all of these insights into action and action into results. It's designed to support you and your team in not only identifying these opportunities, but actually achieving the outcomes that matter most to your organization. So again, I really want to thank you guys for taking the time to jump on here today with me on the screen. Oops, I'm sorry. Skipped ahead here on me. Let me see if I can get back to it so you can scan it. On the screen, you'll see a QR code. This will take you to our website where you can download the latest NoPileups industry report. In it, you'll find industry averages for many of the KPIs that I talked about today. I'd really encourage each of you to check it out. It's an insightful resource and it will help you start to benchmark some of your own operations. Once again, my name is Alex Mereness. I appreciate you guys jumping on. Kayla, I'll kick it back over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. Great info, super informative. So, real quick, if I know we're at 30 minutes, we want to let you guys get back to your day. We do have a few questions we'd like to get to if you can hang on for a couple minutes. If not, we will follow up with all of the Q&A afterward. And if you do still have a lingering question, now's the time to go ahead and put that in the Q&A. So Alex, we'll stick around here for a couple questions and then we'll let everyone get on with their days. So let's see. First one, which of these metrics do you think most of us as operators don't pay enough attention to?
You're giving me all the easy ones. To me, that is e-stop time. And I had mentioned it earlier when I was talking. I think this metric touches on a number of different areas. One being that customer experience. I described the point of view from your customers, the experience from the customer's point of view when e-stops are pressed. But also, again, that hit to operational efficiency. You do not want that conveyor to be stopped, particularly when there are vehicles in the tunnel, and more importantly, when there are vehicles outside of the tunnel trying to enter. So I think that folks really need to drill into that e-stop metric and understand why it's being pressed and start working towards reducing the usage of it in a safe way.
Perfect. This one is about no pileups. So I already have no pileups at my wash, but I'm not tracking these numbers. How do I start, and is there an additional cost involved?
Yeah, great question. And I got an easy answer for you. So if you already have no pileups, there is no additional cost for getting these metrics. It's actually a weekly emailed report that gets delivered to your inbox. All you need to do to sign up for that is email our support team. That is support@nopileups.com. Let them know what wash you're with and ask them to get you set up. It'll take you 2 seconds and they'll be able to flip the switch for you.
Awesome. We've only got a few more questions, so I think we can tackle these and then we will call it. So, next one, do you think it actually helps to show this kind of data to my team, or is it just for owners and managers?
Yeah, so I am a huge fan of tagging your team in. There are some folks who kind of keep it a little bit more close to the vest. I think that this is a great opportunity to tag the team in, maybe even start to gamify this data and get your team involved. Let them see what the metrics are. Let them see the trend lines and provide them the ability to really work to improve the KPIs that you're currently at. So again, huge advocate of tagging in the team and sharing the data out. There are different levels of reporting that you can have team members subscribe to. So if you're an owner operator, you can say, well, I want the org report, which is basically going to show you all of the sites compared to one another. If you have a site manager, we can configure them to just get reports for their specific sites or maybe their regions. So there's lots of opportunity there. Ultimately, though, in my opinion, it is very important to get your team involved. Let them understand and see how they are a part of your success and how they can move the needle.
Awesome. And then, kind of along those same lines, how often should I be looking at this stuff? Weekly, monthly, something
I
else?
look, the sooner that the data comes in, right, and you review that, you can begin to start to take actions to drive in the correct direction. Certainly, you could look at it once a month, but in my opinion, we're sending this to you on a weekly basis. You should be reviewing this each week with your team, understanding what actions were taken and how that has impacted your baseline, right? Are we trending up? Are we trending down? You start waiting a month or maybe even every other month, and your ability to react is hindered. So my suggestion is at the very least, you should be doing this on a weekly basis.
Perfect. One last question here. In your experience, what is the average hit that we take when there's a damage claim? Just trying to get a ballpark.
Do we want to talk about before inflation or after inflation? No, look, this can be anywhere from $300 to $500. Nowadays you get a small scratch on your bumper, and they're not even going to look at it for less than $500. So the cost of damage claims continues to rise steadily. Cars are getting smarter. God forbid, you bump into a car and hit a sensor on it, all of a sudden that increases cost. So I would say it's about $300 to $500. But the thing to remember here is that's not including opportunity cost, right? So two cars bump in the tunnel. What's the cost to downtime? You now need to clear those cars out of the tunnel. Now you have your manager, probably one of your higher paid employees, dealing with those customers, trying to review the incident, pull video footage. It just becomes a mess really quickly. So again, I would say $300 to $500 in hard costs, but then there's those opportunity costs or soft costs that are associated with that. And you'll quickly start to realize that the cost is actually much higher probably than $300 to $500 in total.
Makes sense. Okay, we got through all the questions in a pretty quick time. That's perfect. So, everybody, thank you again so much for joining. We will follow up with the recording of today's session, as well as documented answers to those questions, just in case you want to review anything. Make sure to grab that free report that Alex mentioned. Super great content in there as a next step. And yeah, just thank you so much for joining. We hope to see you on a future session and have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thank you so much.